Okay, hello Breaking Bots. This is Mr. Barrett. I'm going to quickly try to go through showing you guys how to code up an arcade drive robot, which is what we're going to be doing hopefully next time I see you guys. Uh, the basics of this are you have a controller, which should be our joystick. It'll look a little different than Classroom. This is just an Xbox controller. But an arcade drive lets you move forward and back with the Y-axis, and the X-axis actually rotates the robot around. So this is what we're going to code up. I'm going to show you guys how to do this in Robotbuilder and Visual Studio. And then once you guys do that, you'll be able to load up the robot and move it around. So first thing we do, make sure you have all the FRC tools installed and Visual Studio Code. You go down in your search here and do FRC Robot Builder will show up. So you pop that up. In here, we're going to give this a name for this project. Let's call it Practice Robot. And our team number is 5196. And click Create Project, and it'll pop up the Robot Builder. So just resize the thing. And if you look here, it's got a little bit of information. There's Practice Bot, which is what we called it, our team number, and then where it's going to store this thing. So I'm going to pick a different location. I made a robotics folder on my desktop, so it's going to put it there. That's where it's going to put all the Java code in our project folder. Select that. There's also this wiring diagram right here. Let's pick the same thing. Do that here, robotics, and we'll just stick the wiring diagram in there. That's about it for the initial setup. So now we're going to go through and actually build our robot. And if you look down the left side here, you see a bunch of icons. These are all the different things that you can put on your robot. You can look at it this way, or you can switch to a tree view. Whichever one you like, we'll just keep it the icon for now. So the things that this robot needs is a joystick to put your inputs in. It needs a drive system to move the thing around, and we need a command. So we're going to generate those three things through Robotbuilder. So the first thing is, let's create our drive system. So we click on subsystem here, and we're going to add a subsystem. You can do it with a right click and pull down here, or you can go over here and drag this over. So this is going to be our drive subsystem. So let's call it that, drive subsystem. We've got no commands for it to do right now, and we got to fill this thing out. So now in the drive subsystem, we're going to need to add a type of drive system. And I said, the earlier slide we showed you was an arcade drive. So if you look under controllers, down here it's got some different types of controllers. An arcade drive is a type of differential drive. So I'm going to click that, and let's rename this and call it arcade drive. Now if you notice when we pop this up, it's got red here. That means that the Robotbuilder has detected an error here, and we got to fill this out for it. So it's looking for a left motor and a right motor. So we have to add these things called actuators down here. If you click on any of this, it'll bring up a window down here and tell you all about it. So a speed controller uses PWM to control an attached motor. So what we're going to do, I'm going to click here, right click on arcade drive, add an actuator. I'm going to add a speed controller. Now we've got two speed controllers that we're going to use, one for the left and the right side of the robot. So let's call this left speed controller. And if you remember the other day, we had a particular type of speed controller. These are all the ones that FRC you can use. We had Talons on ours, so we're going to choose Talon. The output channel is PWM0. I'll tell you guys about that in a minute. And here's our first one. So if I go in here and look, it's filled in left speed controller for both of them, but we need a left and a right. So let's do the same thing. Add another speed controller. Let's call it right speed controller, and make it a Talon as well. And if you notice, the PWM's 1 for this one. For the other one, it was 0. So these need to be separate PWM controllers. So PWM is a channel that goes out to the speed controller and drives it forward or back or whatever speed you're getting from an input. So now if I look, arcade drive is still red here. If I look, less speed controllers on the left motor, that's good. Less speed controllers on the right motor, that's bad. So we need to click here, select right, and boom. Now we've got our drive system set up. So let's add a joystick to this thing. So operator interface is any inputs coming into the device. If I roll down here, look, and there's an OI section. If I select joystick, joystick is an input for controlling the robot. Okay, we need one of those. So let's drag that over there. Now we got a joystick. Joystick 1, but let's call it drive joystick. And it's hooked up to slot 0. So we can have multiple joysticks. We're only going to have one today. So our drive stick is going to be a joystick 0. So now we've got that. The last thing we have to do is have a command to actually call this drive system and make it do things. So if you click here, there's a bunch of commands down here, and you can select these and read through them. As always, for anything over here, you can read information on it. We're going to do a basic command. So I'm going to grab this, pull it in here. It's called command 1. That's not what we want to call it, because this is our drive command. So now I've got a drive command. What I need to do is I need to look in here, and it's going to have this requires. We're going to add drive subsystem. What this says is the drive command has to have the drive subsystem to do its thing. So now that's plugged in. Everything looks pretty good here. And if we go up here, I believe you can do a verify. It'll come up and say your robot is valid and ready to export. Okay, cool. So we're ready to go. So now the next thing I want to do is save this. And let's save it in the same place we put everything else, right here. And we'll call this practice robot. Now what this is saving is this YAML file, which is actually the Robotbuilder file. So we can go back to this and redo things and keep exporting and update our Java code. So I'll save that. Now I click Java. This thing's going to go off and say project successfully exported. So now we have actual Java code that we can go. If I look, desktop, robotics, here's our folder with all our code in it that this thing just generated. So now I'm going to go back down here and I'm going to type FRC, and here it pops up FRC VS Code 2019. So let's open that up. This is actually Visual Studio. This is where we're actually going to do all the Java programming. I'm going to open, first I'll close the folder that was open before. Open the new folder. So now I'll go to desktop, robotics, practice robot, and it's going to pull in all the stuff. So you got to give it a second because it's got to pull in all the files, locate everything, and it actually does a quick build for you. So then everything is confirmed that it exported correctly from Robotbuilder into here. And we're almost there, believe it or not. Give it a second, 46%. It's successful. Okay, so if you look over here, this is all the folders. The one where you're going to be writing code is this source folder. So you open that, and Java. Here's all the stuff we've created. If you can see, there's our robot, our OI, main, and we created a drive subsystem and a command. So that's everything set up there. So now I can close out this help. Let's open up robot, which is the main guy is here. This guy runs and he starts the robot. So if there's not much to main here. It's just really the jumping in point for everything starting up. If you look over here at robot, you can see he created the drive subsystem as part of the robot. And there's some things that this thing does. There's a disabled mode, there's an autonomous mode, and a teleop. We're going to be operating teleop or doing things here for right now. These are the different modes that the robot runs in the competition. There's an autonomous mode, which is the first 15 seconds of competition. Disabled is before anything starts and after the match ends. And the teleop is actually when the joysticks are live and doing things with the robot. So I'm going to go in here and add drive. Actually, let's do this first. I'm going to add a drive command here. And this is a variable, and it's going to be private. Let's just leave it at like that. Actually, sorry. Let's put that up here. It's going to be class scoped here. This is the drive command that we created in Robotbuilder. And then down in here, I'm actually going to go and teleop init, which is called one time when the robot starts. And I'm going to say drive command equals new drive command. And then I'm going to tell this drive command to start. So what this is going to do is once everything goes live and the judges say go, drive command is going to start up. It's going to get created and start, and it's going to run. So let's go over and look at what drive command is. Well, first let's look at the drive subsystem. This is where actually everything is really happening. You can see the left speed controller, the right speed controller, the arcade drive, everything's set up for you by Robotbuilder. And now this thing's it's ready to run. We've got 2 speed controllers, the differential drive has it, it's ready to go. So if I go here, I need some way to call into the drive subsystem to make it go. So I'm going to call this drive robot, and I'm going to pass in 2 parameters. And a Z rotation. And I can go over this in more detail with you guys when I meet up with you. But here I've got 2 commands. These are going to be coming off the joystick. And I'm going to call differential drive. Actually, what was it called? They called it arcade drive. I called it arcade drive, actually. Arcade drive, X speed, Z rotation. I don't like that name, but that'll work for now. So now, done this. So what's going to happen is I've exposed the command that from the outside we can call this, and it's going to run this. So now I need to go over to our drive command and finish up. If we go in here, there's a bunch of things that happen, but this execute is what runs over and over and over again. So it's called every 20 milliseconds while we're in teleop init. So there's a few things I need here. I need a joystick. Is this, no, putting it in the wrong place again. Let's put it, yeah, all right, we're in the right place. A joystick, we'll call this driver stick. And I'm going to go to the robot and say, hey, OI, actually, no, let's not do that here. We're going to have a driver stick, and then we're going to have the drive subsystem. Go down in here and initialize. I'm going to say drive stick is equal to robot OI get drive joystick. So now I've got a joystick to work with, and then I'm going to go and say drive subsystem equals robot drive subsystem. So now I've got both of these, and I can do everything I need to down in execute. So what are we going to do every 20 milliseconds? We're going to go and get some values from our joystick. So our joystick was called drive stick. And remember, the X speed was actually the Y direction. It's a little confusing, but Y here is actually front and back, and X is rotate. So strange naming, but it's the way it works. So get X, and then I'm also going to get our Z rotation. Get Y. Now I got both of those. Now I can call drive subsystem, and what is that command we just added? Drive robot, and we pass that in. And that's it. I should be able to go up here and click this W up in the corner and say build the robot, and it'll go through here, and if everything is correct, it's going to say build successful. And that's it. You've got a running robot at this point. If you've got any errors, you can look down the side here. If I were to type in something that's not correct, you can see that this little red shows up. So that's kind of an indicator to you that I can click here and it'll go, whoops. Now, let's just roll down and it'll say, oh, you've got an error here. So any errors you find, the IDE actually helps you. This Visual Studio will help you find that error. So that's it for building the robot. Hold on, let me say, did we go in? Yes, we did. So what's going to happen is we're going to say go, and this is going to get called. Drive command is going to get instantiated. They're going to call drive command start, which that means drive command is going to wind up, do some initialization, and it's going to go into this execute loop and go over and over and over again every 20 milliseconds. So that's 50 times second, and it's going to read the joystick, get the X and the Y. It's going to call drive subsystem and say the joystick is currently asking for this. And if I go over to the drive subsystem, our drive robot command gets this, and it's going to call arcade drive with the two values, and it's going to drive around. So that's it. That was 15 minutes. So hopefully you guys can get this running, and I'll talk to you later.